Does your cat stretch the moment they spot you, arching their back, extending their front legs, sometimes letting out a small, satisfied sound in the process? Most owners assume it's coincidence, or just a cat working out a stiff muscle after a nap. But a stretch performed specifically when your cat catches sight of you is a different behavior entirely from an ordinary post-nap stretch. And once you understand the difference, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Let's break down exactly what's happening in that moment and why it means something genuinely different depending on when and how it happens. 1. It's not the same stretch as a normal wake-up stretch. Cats stretch constantly throughout the day, after naps, before naps, first thing in the morning, for reasons that have nothing to do with you at all. That kind of stretch is purely physical, keeping muscles loose and joints mobile, a maintenance behavior every cat performs whether or not another living creature is anywhere nearby. The stretch that happens specifically when a cat sees you is different in a few identifiable ways. It tends to happen immediately upon eye contact, rather than as part of a gradual waking up sequence. It's frequently more pronounced, a deeper arch, a fuller extension, sometimes paired with a direct, held gaze toward you throughout. And it often appears in situations where a cat wasn't drowsy or resting beforehand at all. They simply see you walk into the room and stretch on the spot. Learning to spot this distinction matters, because a random midday stretch and the moment they see you stretch are sending two entirely different messages, even though they look almost identical from the outside. 2. It's a public display of total relaxation. Stretching, at its core, requires a cat to extend their body fully, exposing the belly, elongating the spine, and briefly reducing their ability to react quickly to anything nearby. In a wild context, an animal that stretches out fully in front of another creature is signaling something significant. There's no threat here worth staying tense for. When your cat does this specifically upon seeing you, they're essentially performing that same signal directly at you. It's a physical demonstration that your presence doesn't put them on alert. Researchers studying feline body language have consistently identified full body stretching as one of several behaviors associated with a relaxed, low-stress state, distinct from the guarded, compact postures cats display around something unfamiliar or potentially threatening. A cat who stretches openly the second they spot you is essentially confirming, in the clearest physical terms available to them, that your presence reads as safe enough to let their guard down immediately, without any warm-up period required first. 3. It often means they've been anticipating you. Pay attention to timing, and a pattern tends to emerge. The see you stretch often shows up specifically after a period of separation, you walking back into a room, coming home after being out, or simply your cat noticing you after not being able to see you for a stretch of time. This timing matters. A cat who stretches specifically at the moment of reunion is displaying something closer to anticipatory relaxation, transitioning out of whatever mildly heightened alertness comes with not knowing exactly where you were and into a fully relaxed state now that you're back in view. Cats build a strong internal sense of your usual patterns and routines, and your absence, even a short one, registers as a small gap in their otherwise predictable environment. The stretch upon seeing you again can be read as your cat's nervous system settling back down, confirming that the gap has closed and things are back to normal. 4. The sound that sometimes comes with it means something specific too. Some cats pair their see you stretch with a small vocalization, a soft chirp, a short trill, sometimes a stretched out yawn-like sound. This combination is worth paying attention to on its own, because vocalizing during a moment of physical vulnerability, like a full stretch, adds another layer to the signal. Chirps and trills, unlike a standard meow, are largely reserved for warm, friendly greetings between cats, and by extension, toward trusted humans. A cat who chirps or trills specifically while mid-stretch is essentially stacking two positive signals on top of each other in the same moment: physical relaxation and a friendly vocal greeting, both aimed directly at you the instant they register your presence. If your cat regularly does this specific combination, stretch plus sound, upon seeing you, that's a particularly strong version of the same underlying message, layered rather than singular. If any of this is changing how you think about that stretch you've probably seen 100 times without really registering it, tap that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more cat owners who want to actually understand these small daily signals. 5. Direction and posture add even more detail. Not every see you stretch looks identical, and the specific direction your cat faces while doing it adds a layer of nuance worth noticing. A cat who stretches while maintaining direct eye contact with you throughout is often displaying a more intentional, deliberate version of the behavior, essentially performing the stretch at you rather than simply happening to stretch nearby. A cat who stretches with their rear end angled toward you, tail raised, is often combining the relaxation stretch with a friendly, presenting posture, similar in spirit to the classic tail-up greeting cats use when approaching someone they trust. And a cat who stretches while walking toward you, rather than stretching in place and waiting, is generally showing the most enthusiastic version of the behavior, active engagement layered on top of the underlying relaxation signal. None of these variations change the core meaning, but they do indicate roughly how strongly your cat is expressing it in that particular moment. 6. It tends to strengthen the longer you've had your cat. Owners who've had their cat for years often report this specific stretch becoming more frequent and more pronounced over time, rather than fading the way novelty behaviors typically do. This tracks with what's generally understood about trust and attachment in cats. Rather than diminishing with familiarity, these signals tend to compound and deepen the longer a stable, secure relationship holds. A newer cat, or one still settling into a home, may stretch around you occasionally, but the specific, immediate, upon-eye contact version of the behavior often becomes more consistent and more elaborate as the relationship matures. This is part of why an older cat who's lived with you for years may perform a more dramatic, fuller stretch upon seeing you than they did in their first few months in your home, not because anything's changed about the behavior itself, but because the underlying sense of safety it's built on has simply had more time to solidify. Put all of this together, and a stretch that most owners walk past without a second thought turns out to be carrying a surprising amount of information. It's a signal of safety, a marker of anticipation, sometimes layered with a friendly vocal greeting, shaped by posture and direction, and one that tends to grow more pronounced the longer your bond has had time to settle in. The next time your cat catches sight of you and immediately arches into a full stretch, know that you're not watching a random muscle movement. You're watching your cat's entire nervous system confirm, in real time, that seeing you is registering exactly the way you'd hope